It's about history. It's about preservation. It's about sense of place here on Eastern Long Island. With Esperanza Leon, I'm Irwin Levy, and this is Our Hamptons. Esperanza, good morning.
Hello, Irwin.
You know, Esperanza, we've had a lot of good guests on. I think we're in the 80s in episodes, Esperanza.
Oh my gosh, I still can never believe that.
Crazy. So we've had a lot of good guests, a lot of entertaining guests, a lot of good characters on Our Hamptons podcast. But I think the guy we're going to bring to everyone's attention today is going to fit right into what our audience wants to hear. And he's got a really cool personal history that morphs very, very local, if you will. So, hey, Esperanza, without further ado, can I introduce Jerry Torre? As in Joe Torre, the ex-manager of the Yankees, who Jerry says is a distant relative of, but we'll go down that road later.
I wondered.
We'll go down that road later. But anyway, Jerry, welcome to Our Hamptons podcast.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Esperanza. Oh, boy. Good morning, Irwin.
Terrific, terrific. Now, Jerry, you know, Esperanza, this has sort of become a pattern in Our Hamptons podcast where we sometimes start in the middle first, you know. Jerry is a guy, we don't give ages on Our Hamptons podcast, but Jerry is no kid, the same way I'm no kid, okay? But Jerry's history was he spent time on Eastern Long Island, and actually, what a buildup this is going to be. I'm going to start here, and then we're going to backswing. He actually worked at one of the most iconic, memorable, dare I say, places, real East Hampton folklore. He worked as a teenager, Esperanza, at Grey Gardens in East Hampton Village.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, you have just get right into it, Jerry.
We have to. So, Jerry, I'm going to set the table for you. So, by the way, Esperanza, I have to also mention this. Jerry lives in Queens. So right off the bat, there's that instant connection Jerry and I have, you know, that Jerry's a Queens guy right now. So,
you know, I think we need to do a spinoff, Our Queens.
We keep talking about that, Esperanza. that there really may be potential for that. But Jerry, you know, let's really start almost from the beginning. You grew up, and don't worry, we're going to get to your time in East Hampton because this is Our Hamptons podcast. But you were born in Brooklyn, New York, and you ultimately found your way out, I guess. You moved to Holbrook, mid-Suffolk County. This was when you were about how old, Jerry? Just so we give our audience a little background.
16.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Jerry was a teenager, you know, when he got out.
And your family moved to Holbrook.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay.
Now, so Jerry.
May I elaborate?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. My uncle, a godfather, had a property out in Holbrook. He was building a farmhouse on a portion of his father's land. He was a handyman, mason, bricklayer, all of this, gardener. And he would take me out on the weekends to help build that house. After some time, my parents knew that I had a fondness for the country, and Brooklyn was falling apart, and they decided to move the boys, my brothers, and I to a Holbrook, a block away from my godfather's house.
Oh, yeah.
In Holbrook. Yeah. It was a time when Brooklyn was up in arms and drugs were coming around, and so Martin Luther King was going to be assassinated a year, so it was really a rough time.
A little bit of an urban flight move by your family.
Correct.
Yeah.
And of course, Esperanza, as we both know, now everyone can't wait to get back to Brooklyn.
Yeah, right.
But everyone returned.
Right. You know, so you progressively moved east on Long Island.
Correct.
Exactly right. So now you were out there, and Jerry, you relayed a story how, you were a teenager, like many teenagers, sometimes we have you know, you can pick your friends, but not your family. You get a little conflict here or there. And you found your way out. Tell us how you found your way out to the East End initially and the whole
Well,
storyline behind that.
thank you. Well, again, we now lived in Holbrook, and I had to finish high school, which was just about a year away. I had, of course, made friends in high school with a fellow named Billy Calbecker and his family, Stephen's brother, his brother Stephen, his mom, Rose Bell Calbecker. Um, what happened was I became very close with them, but I ran away from the house I was living in, my parents, and lived with Billy. Only a half a mile away. We attended Holbrook, I mean, we attended Sachem High School. I did then graduate that spring, or summer actually, whatever time of the year was. But Billy had a fishing cottage in Amagansett his father had built in a charming area called Lazy Point.
Oh my God.
The Gardeners Island, the Bay of
Oh, sure. Yes,
Gardeners
yes.
Bay.
We're
Oh, I have stories about the bay and the island that, of course, trespassing has been part of my forte. So I trespassed. I went out to
back
a
when you
fellow and I.
could.
He took a motorboat and we crossed the bay, trespassed. There's a whole story. Anyway, I went to Billy, and he said, "Move in with us. But if you want to for the summer, come out to Gardeners to Home, Amagansett, and you can stay at the house, but you have to get a job to pay your bills, food. No big deal." I did. His brother got me an article from the East Hampton Star. Billy brother Stephen, a police officer, and I called the mansion and didn't know who he was, or they didn't know who I was. Come down for an interview. I went. I got hired by Charlotte, who was working as a housekeeper for Mr. Gerald Geddes, not Getty, Geddes.
Okay.
Geddes,
Gerald,
G-E-D.
right. Gerald,
Yes,
right.
yes.
Gerald
Yes,
Geddes.
yeah,
And
Geddes.
now, Jerry, let me just put you on. Let me just stop you for a second because first of all, we're fascinated with the whole Lazy Point connection. See, Esperanza, Jerry withheld Lazy Point from me.
Ah, yeah, Amagansett is sort of,
yeah,
noted some kind of elegance, even though we figured you'd
he,
probably been in a fish shack.
yeah, he did tell me it was a fish shack, but he withheld. I have to reprimand Jerry after the show, Esperanza, but I'm not going to do it on air. But he withheld the Lazy Point, which of course adds a lore to this whole
Of
thing
course.
because Jerry, we often say about Lazy Point, Esperanza, right? We've gone over this. It's still like nowhere else on the East End. So if you circle back, whatever, we're going to go back 50 years, plus when
Yes.
Jerry is talking about, we're talking mid 70s here, give or take, early 70s. Um, I mean, not to mention Esperanza, the Calbacker name is,
Sure, I know Billy.
Calbacker.
You know Billy?
Well,
You
isn't
know?
he the builder today, right?
Yes, he's like a
Yeah.
brother to me.
Well, he's a very, I mean, now we're getting into like stories, but he's a very good friend of, a very dear friend of mine, Rossetti Perchek, who
Wow.
took
So
over, who was the Clamshell Foundation and Billy's,
you said it.
Yeah.
That's right. That's Billy and his wife Jill and his two girls,
yeah.
and he's a brother since he gave me a place to live.
See, the world is a very small place.
Wow. Is
Yeah,
this, I mean, this
I'm
is
so charmed.
really,
That's
yeah,
great.
it's fantastic. So like, see you work for Billy, but he did imply now the Geddes property was that on Lily Pond Lane? It was in the estate section of East Hampton somewhere. Am I
It
right,
was on
Jerry?
Lily Pond Lane, right after Main Street Beach. I'm not sure of the cross street. There was maybe 9 estates on the ocean's edge
Right.
on
Mm.
Lily Pond Lane, and his Mr. Geddes was maybe halfway through. The Revlon estate was there, and
Oh, I know exactly where you're talking about. Yep.
yes, isn't that charming,
Yeah.
lovely,
Yeah.
magic?
Charming. Jerry, some of the
Yes.
best real estate in the world. And it was some of
Yeah.
the best real estate in the world when you were there. So
Oh,
but Jerry, I got to ask you now, you were a kid from Brooklyn, a kid from Holbrook, central Suffolk County. You must have, and again, Billy Calbacker's cottage had its own charm and
oh
appeal
yeah.
and everything else, but you must have pulled up to these houses and said, this is unbelievable, right? I mean, because
Oh,
I know I still do to this day.
oh, Irwin, I recall walking up to the mansion's front gate, I mean, property line, and then having to breathe deeply and walk onto the property to apply for the job.
Right.
And I'm looking and I'm noticing everything from vines clinging to the garage roof to the beech tree over there that's taller than the house to ducks over there on the corner and deer eating some grass over there. A pool built in the back of the property. It was splendid estate. I felt like I was in the movies from South movies. Southern, fantastic estate. I loved it. I just was so taken, and the smell of the ocean. You could hear the waves slamming onto the shore. Boom, boom. When the surf was coming in. I said, "Am I walking into a dream?" I was astonished. Anyway,
That's
I got the
that's
job. I met Charlotte, who was from Maine, who became a good dear friend, hired me. Then about 20 minutes later, I'm a real chatterbox. I said, "Oh, I love this tree and I love this plant." And fine, you're hired. Be here tomorrow. You move in over the garage, and you will get $100 a week and room and board, and you can help yourself to anything we have in the kitchen. And believe me, I did.
oh,
There's lots of
I
tree
mean
You were all of what, 17?
Yes, if I was 17 at
I,
all.
I mean
That's right.
Esperanza,
Huh?
Esperanza. When I was 17 living in Queens, I was working at a gas station on Hillside Avenue, okay?
Holy
Well,
mackerel.
how come I didn't have a job like
You
this?
should have made your way out east.
Oh,
How come I didn't have this job?
Erwin,
Jerry, wait a second. So we have to paint that. Even though you painted a great picture, I have to embellish it. Esperanza, could you imagine being 17, 18-year-old kid, from Up Island, Brook, whatever,
I can.
the Geddes estate. I mean, the name alone, the Geddes estate, Lily Pond Lane. Jerry painted an unbelievable picture, the
Yeah,
waves
and
crashing. And
Oh,
it was just a different time of,
oh,
oh,
yes,
es-
lots of money, but just very, I mean, look, the fact that she said help yourself to anything in the kitchen and move in
unbelievable.
is just, it harkens back to another time because that time has pretty much sailed.
And it is
well
a
said,
time we love to talk,
Esperanza.
and it's a time we love to tell our audience, and we're so grateful for you to tell us that. So now, Jerry, was working at the Geddes estate so that was like your full-time gig, like you worked at this estate every day, or did you work at a couple of other properties, or it was just the Geddes initially?
It was just the Gettys. Lived over the garage. Mind you, sounds rough, but it wasn't. The garage had a room above it,
Right.
opened onto the windows. You could see the pool in the back and you see the ocean beyond the
Oh,
pool. You could hear the ocean's waves hitting the surf. I mean, the sand. And gee, it was magic and it was high end real estate. And just lived and worked there 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
right,
Then
right,
I
right,
ate when I was hungry and I slept when I was sleepy and I did the chores. I had to trim the lawn, pick some leaves out of the swimming pool,
right.
keep the grass from going over here, trimming there. Simple. It was
Wow.
already an established estate. The gardens are set.
Now, when you were working, okay. I mean, like you put in a lot of hours. Like, I mean, what and we're gonna get to Gray Gardens. Don't worry, because that's
Yes,
that's gonna be the heart of the story. But like, um, Esperanza, I'd be curious. Maybe you would too. Like, what was your downtime like? I mean, you weren't working
Yeah.
24/7. Like, did you? I mean, you were an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old boy in this really in a paradise, and okay, now it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night in the summer. Did you go into the village? Did you go? Esperanza is very big on nightlife, of course. So, like, did you
There
partake in
was
that?
more of it back then.
oh, I didn't know any nightlife, but I did know the sound of the ocean, which
I
drew
was,
me to the
yeah.
beach.
Yeah,
And it
that's
was,
what I was going to ask. I mean, I could imagine you just going as much as possible because it
oh,
was right there. It's like your
oh yeah,
playground.
Esperanza, so exactly right. Excuse me. I went to the beach through either Main Street Beach entranceway or Georgia Beach.
Right,
There was an entranceway off of the area where Mr. Getty's mansion was, but it didn't trespass onto those properties. It wasn't adjacent to the ocean. So I went to either again Main Street. or
Right.
Georgica,
Right.
and often Georgica Beach, and then left onto the beach itself and wander. Gee, every day it would be another 100 yards, maybe two,
Right.
and turn around, and I would do push-ups and run along the surf. And
Oh,
boy, you know what? It was magic. I used to enjoy finding driftwood and poking it in the sand and finding string or something to attach a feather, seashells, driftwood, and making a mobile, which was enormous. Every piece of wood I found, I would entwine into my mobile.
yeah.
I
I mean,
loved creating mobiles.
and I mean, this was, and we're going to get into
Nobody was
this.
there to stop me. I just
We'll get into it a little later in in this podcast, but this was Jerry. Dare I say, was this sort of like your initiation into your artistic endeavors, that driftwood that came later on in your life?
you said it.
We're going to go there.
Yeah.
We're going to go
It's
there.
so interesting. If I can, just as an aside, I can't help but draw a parallel because you started in Lazy Point and you just reminded me with that driftwood and creating a mobile, a stable, a stabile.
Right.
I can't help but think of Mabel D'Amico, right, Irwin?
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, that's right.
right?
I beg your pardon. Who are you
Well,
referring to?
this was when you were in Lazy Point. I wonder if you ever came across the D'Amicos who had the art barge there next to, across Nepegue Harbor and lived on Shore Road at Lazy Point. And Mabel was an artist and a teacher, and Victor, her husband, was also an artist and a teacher and head of the education department at MoMA, the Museum of
Oh,
Modern
man.
Art. And so I couldn't help but think of Mabel when you're talking about picking up driftwood
Right.
and making art, because that's what she did.
No, I unfortunately did not become acquainted with Miss D'Amico, but I did just this summer have an exhibit at the Museum of Modern Arts for 8 weeks. My stones were displayed, and I carved a sculpture known as, I know I'm going on, Tecumseh the Elder, 400 pounds limestone that is presently on view in a gallery in the village. And it was carved at the Museum of Modern Arts Museum here in Manhattan. They had me go there teaching a lesson, teaching skills of dying art, stone carving.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, some parallels there. Sorry, I had to
Definitely.
kind of bring that in because I love all of these resonances.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. And
Esperanza, Irwin, I didn't mean, if I do go on about a subject and you need to stop it, say, no, we're going back to this
don't worry.
topic.
Hey, Jerry, I'm from Queens. Believe me, I'll cut you off. Don't worry. But I have to get back to this. I have to get back to say, I have to get back to something Jerry said, Esperanza, because we do have to we do have to make note that Jerry was cautious about not trespassing at those East Hampton Village Estate properties, but apparently had no problem going to Gardener's Island. But that's another conversation for another day.
Well, that was with Billy.
That was with Billy. We could blame Billy for that.
Billy.
His name was Darrell. He ran a little boating marina out of marina called Merrill's Fish House. Merrill's, and his mother would made the best fish food and made clam chowder. I wish I had a bowl. And had a neat little bohemian bar. We'd go there barefoot and play pool.
We missed that place without ever having been to it.
Jerry, I have to tell you, we did an episode about Lazy Point, and we mentioned that place. There is a street in Lazy Point, Merrill's Lane. I mean, it's really off the beaten path, and we spoke of that specific place. So we.
I think we found a menu, didn't we?
We found a menu. We actually posted it on, I think, our Instagram, or it's on our website. But that's a terrific story. But Jerry, now,
good memories. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you were after the Geddes estate, because we have to get into the meat and potatoes here. Grey Gardens, which was literally walking distance from where you were working for the Geddes, obviously. You got to tell us how this whole thing, all right, the Geddes job, I guess, whatever, stopped, what have you, and you ultimately ended up, working for Big Edie and Little Edie at Grey Gardens. Take us through how this whole thing went down.
Okie doke. Again, I was one for curiosity. I was curious, and I liked introducing myself to property I wasn't invited onto.
Right.
I would trespass. Oh, I got to go see that tree.
Right.
Oh, that water fountain over there. I mean, look at these ducks. I want to find out where they were born. I want to chase them. All of this and more. I was a city boy in the country. I had finally earned enough money, $100 a week, to buy a blue Peugeot 10-speed bicycle. I was the height of my life. I rode my bike down every flat road, every path except one. And then I finally said, "Well, today this is going to be a treat. Make a left, and then go there and make a right, and so on." I made a left. I went down to the corner, maybe 250 yards, and I made a right. And then the road drew very narrow. And I said, "What are these plants? These are," did I look us up? The privet hedge. Privet hedge is maybe 4 or 5 feet of border bush. Did you hear what I said?
Yes. Yes.
Border bush. And I said, "These are privet hedges. Mr. Geddes has them. I just trimmed a batch of them over there recently." It can't be the same. They are. The leaves are the same. I went back on my bike and continued down the road, and I made another sharp left. The road was 10 feet if it was anything. And I looked to my left and I saw the peak of a mansion. I said, what is this building? I mean, I couldn't figure out what it was. And doing that thinking and pedaling my bicycle, I fell off of it. And I lost my footing, clumsy schmuck. Boom, I fell down. And my bicycle over there, and I said, as I'm falling, Irwin, Esperanza, I'm thinking, what did I just see? All of a sudden, there's a forest on this property, and beyond there is a peak. That must be a garage or an old factory. I threw the bike into the brush, got my footing, swiping flies and mosquitoes, and it's hot as an oven. Summer day, gorgeous. And I look and I said, "Holy mackerel, this is a
Oh
house.
my God.
Someone's living in that house." I mean, no, I didn't say that. I said, "Someone has a house here." And
Right.
I can finally focus, and I see this huge tree. I learned later is called a topula. I'll explain later. And on the right of the tree was an automobile. I could see the top of the window on the driver's side. The door was ajar from the automobile having been driven there. Who knows what year? I didn't find the details out till the following day. I stood there in complete awe, and I looked at everything I could look at and chickened out and didn't go any further. I grabbed my bicycle, continued on the day, rode around the front of on the bicycle in front of the grounds, on the street. I was jackass driving around
Right.
happiness. So I went back to Mr. Geddes. I had lunch, had dinner, went up to my room. I used to smoke cigarettes. I opened the window and looked out to the pool. The sun was setting over that way, and I said, "What is that property I just saw?" "You're going to go back." And it took me a lot of courage to get my bicycle and go again. I did. It was dusk. The lights were on, Erwin, Esperanza, on the front porch and in the second room over there, somewhere in the porch. Beyond the porch, the light was lit. And I said, "Someone lives here. This is someone's house. How could it be? Is the Adams family over here?"
That's right.
I think so. I mean,
Because it impacted you. I imagine it was like all overgrown and just completely covered, right?
Esperanza, to say the least.
Right,
It had been years of competing growth.
right.
Trees, saplings, vines on those trees, another season of growth. The vines were so thick, you literally couldn't walk through them unless you had a hatchet or
Yeah.
something to
Yeah.
Right.
chop them.
Yeah.
I
Wow. That
walked
is
around. I can remember the twigs snapping under my feet.
wow.
And I went over to there. I said, "There's a car." That morning, I returned. After that evening, and I looked and saw the lights were on, I went back and I lied awake for hours listening to the ocean. And I said, "You gotta sleep." And I did a little. And then I went in the morning after my chores, there were very few. I went back to the grounds area, front of the mansion. I took my bike quickly over there and I proceeded to trespass. I went up to the car. Then I turned to my left and I saw the banister hardly visible and the front porch, obviously. And I said, okay, go up there. You're either going to go get arrested or you're going to be asked to leave the property.
So at
So,
this point, you're actually about to knock on the door. Is that where we're?
right.
Okay. Now,
I,
wait, but look, just we have to get your motivation here. Now, we understand the fascination. Look, I get it. If we paint our audience a picture, Esperanza, this is an area, an estate section where these properties are manicured to perfection. And here you're literally, I don't have to embellish on Jerry's description. And again, Grey Gardens has been documented. There's been films that actually Jerry was in. We're going to touch on that. But so, Jerry, your thinking at the time was what? You could get a job here. This will be a lifetime job to fix this property.
no,
Was that your thinking?
no, my thinking was very present. And also, what I thought I knew about most things meant nothing because here I am in front of this property. Mind you, Mr. Geddes' property is immaculate. The
Right,
one over there has two ducks on the lawn and a
right,
pond with geese.
right. Yeah.
Some has a swan. I mean, is this a magical haunted house? I didn't think of employment. I didn't think of anything except
And you never thought of asking anyone at the Geddes house about
I
this place first, or did you
afterwards. I did.
afterward?
Afterwards,
I did,
afterwards.
and I was warned by Charlotte, the head housekeeper from Maine, to
Right.
mind my crew at B&Q's and to not mention that I had gone up to the property
Oh,
or even knocked on the door, which I hadn't told them yet. I have told Charlotte.
you got to. Honestly, Esperanza, I'm going to put. I'm just going to say it. I'm really at this point tingling with anticipation
I'm
for this
hanging
initial
on your every
for
word,
this
Jerry.
initial
It
interaction.
was
We
such a.
want to hear. Okay,
That's why
so
I
you're at the
preserved it.
door, because Esperanza Jerry painted us a picture that's I think anyone in our audience is going to be able to take something out of. But we're dying to hear the interaction when you knocked on the door and one of the Edie's answered. So tell
Uh,
us.
God bless her. I didn't tiptoe because it wouldn't matter. The porch creaked like a ship. It was
Right.
broken and rotten. The boards above me were falling, paint chipping. And I did try, but it was useless. I made a lot of noise walking across the porch, and I noticed a built-in bench on the right. And then, of course, in front of the bench was the diamond-shaped windows on
Right.
the side of the one side of the door. There were two diamond-shaped windows on the side of the Dutch door. Two Dutch door opened into two parts, screen door. And I just said, okay. And I leaned into the diamond shaped window, chin up against the window, and I breathed out my condensation air breath and cleaned the window to look
Just
into
to look
the
in.
vestibule. And there I look, there's a sea of cobwebs. And it's cloaked from banister to chair to living room to dining, I mean, library. There was a tunnel in those sets of cobwebs in which this woman who I didn't know yet would come down the stairs and across the vestibule to the front door, the very door she would open in a moment. And I had knocked, and quick fast, I've seen these white shoes traveling below the banister. It leapt that white banister, white shoes. I was terrified. I said, "Oh, well, I did it. They know I'm here." Quickly, the shoes descended one and two and three, and then directly in front of me, the vision of this spiritual vision of a woman wearing. She was wearing a shower curtain was wrapped
Oh,
around her head and a towel. I don't remember the color, but it was bound about and tied. She looked like something really from another planet with these fancy white shoes. I knock on the door, and there she comes through the tunnel of cobwebs through. I hear the front door latch or the wooden doors, a heavy Dutch door click. She opens it, unlatches the screen, and opens it maybe so far and reaches her hand through the opening and says, "Mother, the marble faun is here."
Oh my.
and and I just looked. I was overwhelmed. The stench was about to knock me back into the front lawn. The power of that smell was so that my eyes were tearing, and I just stood there with my hands straight aside. I was very nervous. I was wanted to be, and I was as polite as I had been raised to be. And I said, I don't know who that is, but if you need any help with the property, I'd be glad to help you. I don't want to get any money out of be paid, but I'd like to help. She looked at me and she touched my hair, that long hair, and I was frozen. I didn't know what in the world was going on. And she said, come back in the morning and we'll speak to mother about this. And
Jerry, what was this? Some sort. Wait a second, Jerry. This was what? Some sort of public service? Like you saw this house so overgrown that
I was,
your
You were
motivation
compelled.
was your
You were
motivation was you wanted to help. Is that it? Like,
it was part of that, yes. But more than that, I wanted to have something to offer this complete stranger on her property, no less, with the front door of her home opened. I didn't want to say, this is cool. What do you do? What's the?
right,
I
right,
wanted to
right.
have
Okay,
something to offer her
okay.
because
That
what a
I
what a
under
beautiful gesture, and I mean, you were very courageous because anyone else would have probably
ran
just
for the
run
hills.
away.
Ran for the hills, Esperanza. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, as soon as somebody was coming down the stairs. But you, obviously, there was something enchanting, bewitching. I don't know what word to use. You were just fixed to the spot because of there was some energy there that kept
I
you there.
I just was so careful not to be rude. And
Right.
again, I said, if you need any help with the property, with no idea of what world would take over or go from there. But I wanted very much to see and know more about what I'm visiting, and not has to leave.
And
My
so the next
curiosity was off the wall.
right. So now the next morning, and I am watching the clock, Jerry. So I really want to get this story. I really want to get the story to the audience. So the next day, um, you meet Big Edie,
I
and basically, basically you're hired, and you're actually not only are you hired to work there, you actually moved into the house. Am I correct?
shortly after, yeah, that morning
How? How
we
could
met.
you? How could you, in those conditions, live there? How did you manage to
Well,
do that?
it was
Esperanza. I was thinking the same thing because
there's
now
so many steps leading up to my finally moving into the library and living next to the piano. But let me take you to the morning I met Mrs. Beale when I was invited to come back to meet Mrs. Beale's mother. I got there at 9. I was asked to be there at 9. I was there at 8:30. I got there. Edie opens the door quick. I walk in behind her. She shuts the door, and the smell again is just like, how am I going to breathe this air?
right.
And I hear cats meowing and screeching around and running in every way upstairs. And I go behind Edie up. I didn't know her name. She did tell me her name. I did know her by Edie. And I said, okay, I'm here to help. And I went up behind her and I walked up the stairs. There are 3 landings, one about five, and 5 steps, and left into a darker corridor, and then into a lit area and much more lit area in what I call to refer to as the sunroom. Mrs. Edith Beale, God bless her, is reclining on a chaise lounge, tattered, and all kinds of rags and pails and a raccoon tail hanging from the ceiling.
Oh,
Cats are scurrying from every which way away from me. I'm sort of scared, really. I didn't want to corner them or one of them. And they're looking as a raccoon looking down between the ceilings, crackings opened and everything. And Mrs. Beale says to me, son, you need to eat a boiled potato and a piece of chicken broiled. Eat a green salad to maintain that beautiful face of yours. She said, you look like a girl. I said, okay, thank you. I will remember to eat a good lunch. I was so intimidated by her intelligence and her perception and kindness. And then I said what I said to Edie earlier the next morning before. I said, my name is Jerry. and I worked there, Mr. Geddes. If you need any help with the property, please let me help you. I don't want to be paid. I
Right,
really want to
right.
help you because this is something I'd like to do. She said, let's go into the porch. We did. And we sat, she sat in her little rocking chair. I sat in a little bench and we powwowed for about 40 minutes about me. I said, this woman's talking about me like she's my mother.
Right.
And I fell in love with her compassion. And I bowed to her. I said, Mrs. I don't know who you really are, but there's obviously danger in this house if it catches fire. That's true, but I don't like to smoke. Okay, but it's still. I vowed to help Irwin and Esperanza in any way I could to safeguard. Period. That's it.
Jerry, how long and you ultimately worked for the Beales for how long were you there?
Well, that day, that morning began our relationship. It was around 1970, almost. It was the summer of 70.
Okay.
And Maysles came. Albert didn't come along first. Lee Radziwill came along first with
Lee
David and
Radzawell. That's Lee Radzawell for our audience, Jackie and
right, and that
Kennedy's
was
sister.
Jacqueline's
Right.
sister. I didn't know who they were related to. I didn't
Right.
care. I had been there the day Lee showed up with Al about a year and a half. They
Mm.
started filming 3 days. Lee was bouncy, not pretentious, fun. And I was making gin gimlets in plastic tumblers with no ice, hot gin gimlet, roses, lime juice,
Wait,
and
Joey,
beef
Jerry. Now,
cubes.
Jerry, we have Jerry. I got to
I'm
paint
sorry.
this picture, and Esperanza, this episode podcast may extend a little bit, but we
Oh,
may.
I'm fine with
We're
that.
okay. We'll get this because this
Oh,
is really too fascinating to stop. We may edit it. We'll do. That's a conversation for the producer to deal with. But anyway, Jerry, I just to bring this Lee Radzawell now. Esperanza, Lee Radzawell. Uh, she's.
oh,
Let's just say. Let's 1 second, Jerry. Let's just say Lee Radzawell was high society. Okay,
oh yes.
Esperanza,
Well,
and
so were the Beals.
so were the Beals.
Oh,
But Lee Radzawell, in probably in some sort of couture outfit. Are you telling me, Jerry, she walked into the Beals house with raccoons hanging down from the ceiling? Was she?
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay. Just
absolutely.
want to,
There was
Esperanza, we have to just touch for 1 second how uh, so much of Grey Gardens, the myth of Grey Gardens, and everything. And again, we know about the documentary by the brothers that Jerry's referring to, but this is like a firsthand account of someone we're talking to that was, he at a most impressionable age when you remember things at 20 that you don't necessarily remember when you're
That's
50,
right.
Esperanza,
That's
right? I
right.
mean,
Your
like,
your
that's a
your
good point.
detail of recollection, and obviously, as an artist, you have that ability as well. So, the fact that you remember a tree or a vine
right,
or something like
exactly.
that is incredible.
Exactly. So then to get, and I wasn't trying to steal your thunder, Joey, but we're trying to frame this episode so our listeners can get enough out of it because there's a lot here, very meaty, Esperanza. Um, yeah. So
Erwin, it's your ship. You steer
we're,
it.
we're
I
done.
will.
We
No, no. Go ahead.
we know what we're doing.
This
Uh,
could be a 2-hour conversation
exactly. We're not
very
exactly
easily.
easily. So we're gonna try to we are gonna try to condense it. But so you were here basically then not only working there, but you were there during the period of time when the documentary was being filmed. Am I correct?
He absolutely is.
And how long a period of time was the documentary filming? Did that take 6 months, a year? Like what was the time frame? Do
Eight
you recall?
8 weeks.
Yeah.
8 weeks of filming that documentary.
Yes.
Okay, so
Completely.
so you were there before,
Sporadically.
during, and then after,
Yes.
right?
Right. Can I elaborate?
Yes.
Lee had come by with Albert and David, who I thought I thought they were New York University students learning how to make movies.
Right.
Lee, like you see kids with cameras. Oh, they're just learning their trade. I didn't think they were anywhere near professional. And Lee appeared to be just a fun-loving, rich girl with two friends with cameras. Really. Anyway, they came by, and Lee and Edie had a powwow or 10. They got heated, and dust ups did occur. But during the 3 days they filmed, Edie and Lee finally, unfortunately, locked horns over had an argument over a rattan chair that Lee liked and thought of taking and restoring it. And Edie went, no. Lack of a better term, she was defiant. That ended the film, and Lee shelved the movie quickly. It's been shelved until it came out in that summer, just recently, a year or so ago. I had forgotten all about that footage. I was in that film. I didn't even remember it. I remember it being a quick moment, 3 days. I
Right.
remember helping the people putting the heating units, the baseboard heating. There was nothing else going on except Lee's pursuit of having a film made of herself as a Bouvier in the Hamptons, and her aunt, Mrs. Edith Bouvier Beale, dictating, reciting some lyrics, singing some songs, and that was the hope of this content of her film. It was shelved because they had to dust up Edie and Mrs. Beale.
Mm.
I mean Edie and her cousin.
Hmm.
Period. And Albert was there and left with the film crew, and I would think about a month, maybe two. The phone rang, and I answered it because they were reluctant to ever answer the phone. I did, and I said, Mrs. Beale, may I answer the phone? It's only been ringing since sunrise. And I was trying to make fun of that, and I did. And I said, oh, it's the guys with the film crew. Oh, okay, I'll ask. Mrs. Beale, they want to come back and make a film. And I said, put my hand over the receiver, and I said, Mrs. Beale, we might be able to make some money. That's what I said. I don't kid you. And she said, you think? I said, yeah, they got cameras. What do you think, Edie? Oh, mother, it's up to you. It's your house. Come back, come back, come back, come back. And they did the following day. And I helped them with the cameras. Period. That was it. And we
That's
began.
incredible. So you were really instrumental
Well,
in making that documentary
uh,
happen.
I introduced the idea again to Mrs. Beale. I assisted David and Al with the electric lines to light the mansion. They didn't have adequate lighting, nor did they have safe electrical wiring.
Right.
So
Imagine,
I
yeah.
did. I knew enough about safety that if it arched, unplug it. I don't want to
Yeah.
fire.
Esperanza, and again, just to clarify for our audience, the Albert and David that we're talking about were the directors of Grey Gardens. That's the Maysles brothers,
Yes.
Albert Maysles, David
Maysles,
Maysles.
yeah.
Esperanza, I'm listening to all of this fascinating conversation, and I have to laugh at myself here because one of my biggest takeaways is trying to imagine Lee Radziwill wanting a chair from that house.
Why?
Okay, that's like
It
that's
was a
a
family heirloom.
I guess I guess it was a family heirloom.
Oh,
And again, now this film was made in '75. So Jerry, you were actually at Grey Gardens for whatever. This is 4 or 5 years.
yeah.
This was not just a 2 week gig. So we really want to make mention of that to our audience. I mean, this was a 4 or 5 year gig. Now, ultimately, after the movie, I mean, did you stay much longer after that, or was at that point you were sorting? It was you were on your home stretch of
No,
leaving.
what occurred during the filming one afternoon, I'm on the lawn of Mr. Geddes on the riding lawnmower. There's a whole comedy of errors I made to get fired and be rehired because Mr. Geddes said, you're fired. I don't want to see you on the property. I said, Mr. Geddes, I cut the lawn in the middle of this huge lawn. How am I supposed to know when you're looking for me? He fired me several times, broke my heart, took my job. I went back. Charlie got it. Period. I'm on the lawn of one afternoon cutting the lawn, and I hear these engines going down Lily Pond Lane. I said, oh, big trucks, fire trucks. Where do you think they're going? I know where they're going. I jumped on my Peugeot and followed the fire trucks, basically by just smelling the diesel engine. And there they were. They buffaloed their way into the mansion. Edie had been, I thought, assaulted, and they put their foot in the door, opened the screen door, took the fire hose, and were now already at that time hosing down the vestibule, the second floor, and the living room and the dining room with high-powered fire hoses. Mrs. Beale's up there screaming. The water splashing onto the ceiling of the second floor. Plaster is crashing down on the floors. Water is descending down the staircase. It's a mess. Cats are wet, screaming, crazy. I ran up behind these clowns, over the hose, into the bedroom. Mrs. Beales hanging on for dear life to the headboard. I said, "What?" I cursed. I'm sorry, I'm not going
Yeah,
to
we keep it
curse.
clean on our Hamptons, Jerry, but
What are
we
you
understand. Okay,
doing?
yes.
I never did that in front of Mrs. Beale. I was
Right.
freaked out. I said, "You're scaring out of a. I can't believe I'm cursing. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Beale. Um, who are you?" I said, "I'm Jerry, blah, blah, blah." I said, "You can't do this. You're going to give this woman a heart attack. Why are you here? What do you want?" Edie was all kinds of confused, as was the case often, and wasn't able to comprehend the scene. This woman, who I don't want to mention her name or what she looked like to me,
Okay.
I said, who are you? She goes, "I am the EMT supervisor. You have to get this house up to order or she's going to the crazy house." I said, "That's pretty cruel. Who are you?" "I'm Jerry, and I'm here to help. And if you don't leave, I'm going to lose my mind." And I was really strict, very angry. This is my mother, for Christ's sake, and her daughter was my sister, really.
Right.
And they said, "Well, you got to sign this." And I said, "Edie, would you please come here and read this? Because I'm not able to interpret this legal bindings. I can't read this and understand it. I'm too excited."
Right now, are we to assume was the town here getting involved in
It was
this?
the Board of Health for the
Oh, the
town of
Board of Health.
Haven.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Right.
And
And
Okay.
this, please situate me. This is late 70s, 76, 77. When?
this just before and during the filming.
Okay. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
75. Okay.
70.
Oh
Okay.
no,
75.
filming was finished by 75
Right.
and released in 75. The working, let's call them the working years, was 72 to 75.
Got it. Okay.
You know,
Okay.
and in that period, there were seasons of filming, spring, summer, and then the last one in the fall.
And and
Okay.
and how long after the filming? I mean, just again, because we want to give our audience a framework and we want to start winding this down. How much longer were you at the Beales house? I mean, if the filming ended in 75, were you there for another year, 5 years? Like, what was the timeline?
I was there till Mrs. Beale passed away,
Which
1977,
oh,
February the 5th.
okay, that's a timeline. Wow. Now, and
Yeah,
at that point, Jerry, Mrs. Beale passed away. I mean, ultimately, we're not going to get it. We had a conversation about Grey Gardens on a prior podcast. It was purchased by the Bradleys, and they restored the house. But at that point, after Mrs. Beale died, did you then leave the East End of Long Island? Was that really when your
that was
time?
the end of it.
That was
Yep.
the end of it.
At the funeral, after the mass, I went to the cemetery with dear Edie, Mrs. Onassis. Lee was there. John, son of John F.
Right.
Kennedy.
Oh,
Mrs. Onassis was there. I was 5 feet away. She had been crying. I was impressed. I didn't think she had such compassion, nor the family was emotional. I was glad to see it. I didn't cry. I just kept reserved, and I went to the grave. It was freezing, icy cold there. And Mrs. Beale, God bless her, lowered into the grave, and I crack up. And Edie says, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I'm going to go." I said, "What are you going to do?" She goes, "I'm going to go home. Do you want to come out to eat with us?" I just said, "No, I'm not going to go out to eat
right.
with you. I feel like a peasant among kings. Come on.
Right.
I'm a peon. They look at me like I am. Still, I can't relax. I don't want to go with the people." I
Oh
went
my
I had a little Carmi Gear junkie car, and I went home.
Wow.
That was Queens.
Oh my God.
Mrs. Beale had laid to rest. The days were over. I was shot, and that was entirely the end of my East End of Long Island.
Oh my God.
Wow. Wow.
It was
I
so impossible to explain
yo
it.
yo Esperanza.
So much
And
emotion.
I mean, I swear, I'm exhausted. Like in a good, like this was such a Jerry. First of all, I mean, what an Esperanza. What an unbelievable storyteller. I mean, this was a picture painted that was just extraordinary. And but honestly, I feel the emotions Jerry felt, Esperanza. Like, I mean, right? I mean, it's
Yeah. What a
really
roller coaster for you, really, as well.
It was. and I remember I had family there, and then I didn't, and I didn't care about how they treated me or it didn't treat me.
Right.
Mrs. Beale was gone.
Right.
My confidant. I
Right.
remember the last few days. She was in a wheelchair. She weighed about as much as a cat. I
Oh,
wrapped her in some tissues and some weight. I gotta tell you, some linens, like sheets. I
yeah.
looked, the linen had curved and concealed her face, so I rolled it back and found her eyes, and I looked into her eyes as she was beckoning for help.
I mean,
And I could,
Jerry, you were really, everything to these people in a sense. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, you took care of the property, but Esperanza, is it fair to say it went beyond taking care of the property, the home? He was taking care of them.
Right. They became your family, like you said.
Yeah.
well, I didn't think of that any other way. I had
Right.
to. It was a
Yeah.
duty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus, I mean, I was like, I know who I am, and I know that once we became family, that I couldn't turn my back like the family had. And if God Almighty fire started and I wasn't there and anything happened, I think I would not be able to live the rest of my days. So I said, "All right, you tough guy, stuck it out. You committed, and I want you to help." And we're gonna talk to myself a lot, but anyway, I did. And when Mrs. Beale passed, my life ended for
Oh,
some time. It did.
And so you returned to Queens. That was when you returned. You returned to
Well,
New York.
frankly, honestly, I returned to Manhattan.
okay.
And
Okay.
it was, I'll be honest, there always will be. There's no sense in not telling you the candid truth. I am gay. I went to Central Park. It was active part of the city. I would go there cruising to meet somebody to put me up for a day or two. I
Right.
was homeless
Right.
and I
Yeah.
was hot.
So
So I
you
knew
went
if
you
I
you
had that
went through a
card.
really a
Yeah.
tough period of
So
Wow.
I did. I was successful in meeting young men who liked me, and there was no money, no drugs. It was just a relationship for a
Right.
day or two, maybe
Right.
no longer,
to
maybe
keep you
3 years.
housed.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Correct.
My
And
God.
it wasn't like I was a Casanova. I just used my assets to get by until I figured
To
something
survive.
out.
Right.
Yeah.
It was there that I met my partner Robert, and we hit it off so well that we became close, not
Right.
lovers. I moved
Right.
in with him in the studio apartment in Gramercy Park. I got in contact with the lawyer for Mrs. Onassis's family business. His name was Ari. And the lawyer for Ari's oil business contacted me because I made a point of making it known where I was. And the phone rang, and Robert said, "These guys are weird. You want to talk to them?" "Yeah, who is it?" "Want to come for an interview? You had a job overseas?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "When?" "Tomorrow, the Barclay Hotel." I said, "Okay, I'll be there. What time?" "This time." I went. I had potato pancakes with these two men in suits, and they offered me a job as a gardener's assistant in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for $1,100 a week. And they said, "Well, what can you offer us?" I said, "I can work. I'm a hardworking person." "Okay, we'll call you." They did. Tomorrow morning, they did. I got hired. I went to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for 13 months. And I believe it was influenced by the Mr. Onassis and his
I
company.
was going to say it
Right.
was like a gratitude, an expression of gratitude for what you had done
I think
for
so,
her family.
absolutely.
Exactly.
I got a card from Greece thanking me with no name.
I mean, the Ari he's referring to is Aristotle Onassis, just for our audience. So, so this is this was, I guess, Esperanza, like the 6 degrees of separation. Working for the Beales led to all of these. I don't want to use the word connections, but I mean, in a sense, I mean these
Experiences, yeah.
experiences, and I mean, meanwhile, he's talking to Aristotle Onassis' attorney. I mean, so like. I'll leave it there for the audience to interpret. But Jerry, we do really need to move on, and I do want to give you a couple of minutes to just really,
Okay,
sort of
I
bring this
apologize.
together, to bring it. I mean, Jerry is today an accomplished artist working predominantly in marble, I guess, right, Jerry? I mean, he touched on it earlier, has had exhibitions at PS1, at MoMA. I mean, this guy is also the real deal, Esperanza, in present day within the art world. I mean, hey, this guy's got a Wikipedia page. That says a lot, right? I mean,
Oh, it is? Oh, yeah.
I said you have a Wikipedia page, so you are, you're,
I don't know how that happened.
yeah.
I have no idea.
Well,
I don't
as
know.
long as it's accurate, Jerry, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Just go with that.
Just
But I mean,
make sure you check it.
Jerry, I mean, if our audience wants to learn more about you, is there a website you have? I mean, do we is there anything they could, you could Google Jerry. The bottom line is you can Google Jerry Torre, Gerard
Yes, you
Torre,
can
believe me.
Google my name. I'm not hip with technical.
Right. But the point of the story is
Okay.
Jerry, I'm going to do the commercial for you. To our
Okay.
audience of our Hamptons podcast. I'm
I
going to
have
do
the.
it. I'm going to do it
Sorry.
for you. Um,
And also, well, you mentioned, I think earlier, but you did write a book also.
I did. It just.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I get excited.
Not at
that's
all.
that's okay. We know how to
Well,
regulate
that
you. Don't
what
worry.
happens. I have The Marble Faun of Grey Gardens by Jerry Torre and Tony Mayetta. 2006. It's in that book.
Yes.
Esperanza, you and I are going to close this episode out to really just put this out. Mention, just get out a couple of points. Jerry Torre, to our audience, this guy is as genuine and a good soul as you could imagine. Okay,
Well, if his stories didn't, make you draw that conclusion, I
exactly.
don't know.
We don't have to
Your
elaborate. I mean,
compassion and your authenticity
right.
are.
And again, I had a conversation, Esperanza, with
Marry
Jerry.
me, Esperanza.
Yeah, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, get in line. Anyway, Esperanza. Jerry is such a genuine guy. I suppose, as I always do, I always speak to a guest in advance just to have a conversation before we go on air. And Jerry and I had instant chemistry in the first 30 seconds. I mean, like what you see is what you get with Jerry. He's authentic, to use your words, and real. But his history, this story is just fascinating. And
Your
yes,
artwork is beautiful as well.
But that's the other.
amazing.
Oh, thank you.
That's also has to be made. This is an accomplished artist. Has had shows at MoMA, PS1. This guy is a renaissance man. His body of work over the course of his entire life is extraordinary. An author. There's a book that he wrote about this experience. So to our audience, Esperanza, we should really say, if you want to delve deeper, just Google Jerry Torre. There's going to be a million things that are going to come up. Gerard Torre, whatever.
And to be honest with you, now I do want to see the documentary again of,
yes.
of Grey Gardens, because I'm trying to remember, seeing you, or just how now seeing it through your eyes really is what I'm curious to
exactly.
see it.
Exactly. Yeah. Jerry Torre, we can't thank you enough for being a guest of our Hamptons podcast.
Gee whiz. Well, thank you.
So if you have any final thought.
Yes, I want to thank you, Esperanza and Irwin, for being in my life, and I'll be friends with you forever.
There you go. You got it. You got to deal on this. This won't be our last conversation, whether or not it's on air or off air. But thank you for that.
Oh, I hope not.
Esperanza,
Hey!
Esperanza, this will go on record. Our previous longest episode, I believe, was with the mayor of West Hampton Dunes, Gary Veglianti. But I think Jerry Torre episode Esperanza may actually have beaten it. But really, really well worth the experience. And thank you both. Esperanza, let me close with, as always, a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Irwin.
All right.
And until next time.
Until next time. Thanks so much for joining us. New episodes of Our Hamptons are released every other Tuesday. Find them wherever you get your podcasts.